Welcome back to In the Shade. I'm Jenny Wilson, and
I'm Isabel Ancela.
And this is our 18th episode. Holy shit. And this is our first recording of season 2. Thank you guys, or thank you all, y'all, for just coming back for season 2. And we really appreciate you.
We're so excited.
We're so excited. We see your comments and everything, but just want to say we appreciate y'all and thank you for being here for season 2.
As always, we want to start by saying that we started this podcast to bring awareness for BIPOC folks that have gone missing. We also discuss individuals that are convicted murderers, but mainly when we're discussing these stories and cases, we want people to know that we want to help bring justice and awareness to BIPOC people that do not appear in mainstream media.
This episode style is going to be completely different. We've never done anything like this before. So this one is a special one, and it's a follow-up from an episode that we did last season. I think it was our second, or I think it was our third, because I think Casey Joy was our second episode. But this is just gonna be something special. We wanted to just bring you guys a smoke. So
we were able to talk with Angie and Jim Sales, who are the parents of Jaxon Sales. And we, as you mentioned, covered his story in either episode 2 or 3 last season. And they reached out to us after they heard and watched our episode, and they wanted to give us an update. So we are really excited to share this interview with you and to give you an update on the case.
Yeah, and honestly, we are so thankful that they reached out to us. We never in a million years ever thought our podcast would reach any of the victims' families
members
or anything. We had no idea. So we are so grateful and appreciative that they reached out to us. And we cannot thank them enough for taking time out of their day to chat with us about their son's case.
We want to give you a recap on last year's episode.
Facts.
Just to kind of refresh your memory,
and then we'll give you
on this Jaxon Sales case.
Yeah, so it was about this 20-year-old who was found dead on March 2nd of 2020 from who overdosed in a 41-year-old white man's luxury apartment, who he allegedly hooked up with the night before. They met on a dating app, and they also had a mutual friend, if I'm not mistaken, too. It was somewhat of a blind date, but anyways, he was later found dead in the 41-year-old's bed. The man noticed he wasn't breathing around 7:30 a.m.-ish and called the police. So, they said, by they, we mean the San Francisco Police Department and all of the political people involved in this, said that he died from an accidental GHB overdose, which is also known as a date rape drug. But and then oddly enough, and so fucking weird, they found crystal meth, a straw, and pills in a closet of the old white guy's apartment.
Yeah.
And what?
And the name of the white guy was never revealed. He was never officially called a suspect. And when they shared the body cam footage of the police officer that went to the apartment after the guy called them, they were comforting him. They were don't worry about this, it'll be okay.
Which is so fucked up. Because can you imagine if that was us though? If someone was to found we wouldn't be comforted. We'd be well, what the fuck did you do?
We would be in handcuffs
straight up,
immediately.
Immediately handcuffs, straight up. So it's just kind of, again, why, first of all, why come out the gate and, instantly protect someone? That's, super suspect. I mean, we'll get into our thoughts on that, later on. But it's just, weird. It's just, there's no other way to describe it besides just weird.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense.
Do we want to jump into actually discussing our conversation with the parents? They reached out to us they emailed us saying that they saw our YouTube video.
And then we just realized they like reached out to us on YouTube too.
They did, yeah. They left us comments, and we actually did not see them for a couple months.
Yeah, and
so we apologize.
Yeah, same with Instagram too. Didn't see it until like way later on. So yeah, we apologize for that too.
Yeah. But they reached out to us and said that they were willing to chat with us about the case and any updates. And yeah, we're really excited about this opportunity to have been able to talk with them and share this with you.
How did you feel when you saw the email? Because you texted me about it, and I was like, no way. I'm like, she's playing, and then I'm like, she doesn't really play like that. So I'm like,
I was pretty shook. I was like, what is going on? Like, never, like you said, never in a million years did I think that victims, family members would reach out to us and want to talk with us.
Yeah, like I never would have thought that like they would have like heard us, you know, because we're still so new and we're like so little compared to like other people. But it was, I just like when you texted me that, I was like, wait, what? I was like, to us? I was like, how did they like? Wait, what? I was like, no way.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was like, it was real. It actually happened. They're super sweet people.
They were so sweet.
They're so sweet. And
they
like,
were so nice. And yeah.
So nice.
Great.
But yeah, I was like in total shock. I was like, wait, what?
Yeah. And even after the interview, I was still just in awe about what had just happened, because again, I never would have thought that we would actually be talking to family members and this almost turning into some kind of like investigative like podcast situation.
Yeah,
like I don't even, like, we don't do this in our professional lives. So I was like, are we ready for this?
Yeah, I was like, do we, like, and I'll like, cause I know we talked about it off camera, but I'll tell you about how I know like we prepared for it. I was straight up watching like Oprah interviews. Like I straight up was like, yo, I need to watch Oprah.
You're trying to be the new Oprah.
I know. I was like, do I watch Don Lemon? Do I watch Oprah? Do I watch Anderson Cooper? I'm like, who do I watch? And I'm like, okay, well, Oprah seems like a safe kind of like space. But yeah, I was like, yo, this is so wild. And I'm like, this is like, but we're so like thankful. It just kind of shows you like you just do what you enjoy. You just never know what's going to happen. Just like go for it. Try something new. If it brings you joy, whatever, like you just never know what's to come from it. But how did you like, I guess like kind of prepare for like the interview?
Well, mostly I researched like how do you record something like this, because normally we just like record on one camera with our equipment here. Like the technical aspect is something that I really focused on. And then, I just wrote down questions that I wanted to know more about.
Yeah, same.
I like rewatched our old episode to kind of remind myself of like what the gaps were that we uncovered, and just finally being able to ask them to someone. Because right now we're just kind of like asking them into the ether. Yeah. And apparently some people are listening to us.
Yeah, I know. Like, yeah, first of all, some people are listening to us. And we have like some shady comments, but whatever. That's a different subject for a different day. But I just like, I was like, it was funny too. Because like with our questions, it was so funny how like on our like doc that we created, like our questions were like they were similar to each other, but they were like different, but it like flowed so well too. Like we wanted to know about how Jaxon was as a person, and you were really good about asking questions like pertaining like to the case. So it was like a good kind of like mix, I feel like, of questions that we asked. And we were so legit that like you sent them the questions ahead of time before the interview. Yeah. Like, so it was,
I don't know. I just feel like that's how
it's like done though.
That's how Oprah would do it. She would send people questions.
Oprah would dead ass send the questions ahead of time. I'm like, so that's why I'm like, oh, this is like, I'm like, oh shit, this is legit. So, no, we're super excited. We hope you guys enjoy again this episode in style, but I'm excited.
Yeah, definitely leave us feedback on the format of this episode since
Yeah.
it will be so different. We'll kind of drop in clips of the interview, so let us know in the comments.
Yeah, let us know. But so like some of the early struggles in the case or like things that kind of were like we think were mishandled. Angie went over them in like greater detail, and I thought she did like a phenomenal job.
Yeah.
So, for example, again, she said the last time she saw Jaxon was March 1st, and he said, "Oh, like I'm gonna come home," and she said that he always like comes
Right.
home if he says that like he always like says what he's going to do, and so that was like the first thing that was like noticed super weird, and then. Oh, another thing that was really interesting was how the family or how like Angie found out about Jackson's passing.
I was at work alone. My older son happened to see the coroner, but had missed the door, and the coroner had already left. And I saw the coroner badge in our Ring doorbell video, and so my son got the card that was left. I called them, and my son also mentioned that a bunch of neighbors were kind of milling about the street. So in my mind, I thought, oh, there's something happened on the street, like it's in one of the neighbors' houses. And so when I called, I said, they asked me who I was. I gave my name. And as the guy's flipping through things, I guess I said, oh yeah, my son Jackson, I just realized he didn't come home last night. He said he was going to, but he didn't. So he said, well, what's your name again? And then he said, we'll have to call you back. And I said, no, I need to know what's going on because there's a bunch of neighbors out front. Did something happen in the neighborhood? And then the guy says to me, well, who are you again? I said, I am Angie Sales, Jackson's mom. And they said, well, Jackson's dead. Just like that. Jackson, not, are you alone? Do you have anybody with you? Can you sit down? We have some news for you. None of that happened.
Or I'm sorry to have to tell
Yeah,
you.
not even that happened. It was Jackson's dead. And I don't quite remember what happened next. And I guess things unfold the way they need to because usually I'm on my cell phone if there's a personal call at work. I happened to call from the work phone, and I believe at some point I called Jim while I was talking, and I remember being picked up from the floor by a coworker, being told, we can drive you home. I drove home. I don't know how. And then from that, when I walked in, you were on the phone with the police, right?
Hmm.
And what happened there? Because it was a very brief conversation.
Yeah, I tried to. Well, when I first got on the phone, I asked them, what had happened, and I was, and I stated to them that I'm the father of Jaxon Sales, and he says, "Oh, you're the person that lives on Fallon Street in San Francisco." And I said, "No, I live in Oakland. I'm the parent of Jaxon Sales that was found dead in the apartment on Fallon Street,
No, it was
or
Fremont.
Fremont Street. Sorry,
Mm-hmm.
on Fremont Street." So he got that mixed up, thinking that I was the person that
That Jackson had died with, right?
yeah, died with.
Mm-hmm.
So then I asked him, can you give me details? And he said, well, we'd have to get that from the police report, and that hasn't been released yet. So from that point, I just said, okay, and what's the next steps of what we need to do?
It was just like so like how would you describe it? It was just like so I don't know, like just gross how they handled it.
Impersonal and unprofessional.
Yeah. It was like something so sensitive.
Yeah. The
Like-
fact that they just told her over the phone and were like, he's dead. And then that's it.
Yeah, and she was at work because she saw someone on the Ring camera, and she's like, who is that? Where are all these like people outside? If I'm not like mistaken, but it was just like, yeah, who is this person, or who are these people on my like Ring camera? Why is there like a lot of commotion kind of going on? And it was just like really, just like I just can't believe that someone would treat like somebody else that way, knowing that their son just passed. I just like.
And then when she told Jim called the police and wanted to get more information. And then they confused him with the owner of the apartment or the
Yeah.
renter of the apartment.
Yeah.
And it's just like, why are you not getting your like story straight?
Yeah, like that part.
And
just,
how can you mistake literally the same last name of like the deceased with the person where that body was found?
I think it's like that. Yeah, that was super off. That just didn't make any sense. And of course, like we'll drop like the clip so you guys can hear what we're referring to, and you'll be able to like piece it more together and have a better understanding. But it just was, the whole thing just did not make any sense in how they just like handled this 20-year-old kid. He was a kid, so it's just like,
And then another really strange thing that they mentioned was they obviously were like home with their family after they found out and invited their extended family to just be there with them. And then one of their family members remembered to request an autopsy.
So that night, because we were so distraught and we had all our family over, I know that my brother and my cousin were able to get through to the police and or the medical examiner. And at the 11th hour, my cousin was like, should we get an autopsy? Because we weren't thinking straight. And so we did. And we luckily had just caught the medical examiner in time because they were actually going to bundle Jackson's body up and get it to the mortuary. So they kept his body for another 7 days. And it was the first week of shelter in place. And so they wouldn't even allow us to see him. We didn't see him until a week after he passed away.
And that also just seems really strange to me because, like, why wouldn't that just be part of the whole process for the medical examiner to just do the whole panel, the whole shebang?
I don't know.
Like, why do you have to request that? Who even knows to request that?
Yeah, like if they didn't like have someone that knew to like request that, how would you even know how to like start? Like, what? So you're telling me that they just would never have done it then?
Yeah, they were just gonna like send him to the mortuary and get buried.
That's just
without
like,
any
so weird to me. That just feels like super like icky. You know what I mean? Like, it
no
just
due
feels...
diligence. Obviously, they didn't care about the worth of this body. They're just like, yep, he's dead. That's it.
Yeah,
we don't need to find out more.
And then even I don't know. It's just like that part still bugs me. And then they couldn't get more information about either the other death or substance-induced death in the apartment. Because if you remember from our first episode, we mentioned how there was someone that passed in the same white guy's apartment. And it was just kind of like, if this keeps happening, why is there not like a roster of information about this guy on file? You know what I mean? Like, that part was super weird.
There was somebody allegedly that was confirmed by the medical examiner. Well, the medical examiner said overdose. The police said they used a term with us that they wouldn't say was an overdose. It was a term that was more like affected by some substance. Okay, but they would not use the term overdosed. And so when you're affected by a substance, if you're on drugs, yeah. And so, but we also had somebody say, not directly to us, but someone who had found out information that there was a death in the apartment a month before that we haven't been able to substantiate.
If they have this information, why is this guy still like around? And like, not to like jump forward too much, but because like, remember from our first episode, if you don't, no worries, when he had like, and we mentioned it briefly about him having like meth and pills and stuff, and like what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, what? Like,
another weird thing about like somebody possibly dying in that apartment in the past. So that information was like mentioned to the brother of Angie, who went to the medical examiner to pick up Jackson's belongings. And Angie later tried to find out like who was that? Who
Yeah.
was the person that told them these things?
Yeah.
And when she got in touch with the medical examiner, they were kind of like, what do you call it? Not ghosting. They were like trying to gaslight her and tell her like, we didn't say that. We don't know who worked that day. And she's like, you should have a roster of who works at what time.
Like, they totally do. They were just bullshitting.
Yeah. And she also said that the same person who said they can't tell them or they don't know who worked that day, that was the same admin who also refused to reopen the case this entire time.
It was just like so
like
fucked up. Like, it's so messed up. Like, it just doesn't.
They don't give a fuck at all.
They don't.
We couldn't get down to the medical examiner the next day. We were just so distraught and shocked. And so my brother and his family went to pick up Jackson's belongings. And that's who told my brother that there was an overdose 2 days before. And so, yeah, I mean, we were shocked. And when I asked the medical examiner administrator who that was that spoke to my brother, he never told me. He never told me who that person was because my brother a year later or 2 years later had forgotten because we were trying to piece together things for the police. And that person never got back to me. And I said, I'm in HR. I know how payroll records work. You can see who checked my son's belongings out to my brother that day. And the response from that particular person was, well, you should have gotten a list, a detailed list of your son's belongings when it was returned. And I said, that wasn't my question. My question was, who checked out his belongings to my brother that day and who told them? Because we don't make things up. So the medical examiner, my brother said the medical examiner rep told him that there was an overdose. Never got back to me. And he was the same administrator who refused to open up the case.
This is like why we like started this podcast, because like when you get down to like the nitty gritty details, it's like how like our community is just like treated. It's like
and disregarded.
Yeah, like Black and brown communities are just totally disregarded, and like Black, brown, Asian communities, like anyone that's like a minority for the most part, it's like our just like this is what happens. Like when you look at the details, this is like the norm for us, which is like extremely unfortunate. But yeah, it was just like it just like did not make any sense. Yeah. But
so another interesting part that they shared with us was that they actually did receive a police report pretty soon after Jackson's death.
Oh yeah.
The only strange part that she highlighted was that it was, one, really short, and two, unredacted.
Our very first police report, after I had to follow up every day since Jackson's death to find out if we were even going to get a police report, showed up in the mail one day. It was only a 2/3 page narrative, and it was unredacted. And when the officer, Louis Wong, found out, when I finally reached him 7 months later, and he found out that it was unredacted, he was very surprised. And he said, how did you get that? Or something to that effect. And he said, you're going to have to ask for a new one. And the new one they sent us had everything redacted out. And I was like, well, what am I supposed to do with the other one? Because we didn't know the difference. We had never ever had to be involved with or received a police report in our life. So when we got the original one, we didn't know what to question because we thought that's what we were supposed to get. But it is interesting to note that one person in the government agency who spoke with us said that he had never seen a death report so lightly narrated. He said he saw jaywalking with police reports that had longer narrative than what we got for our son's death.
Okay, if you Google like police reports, right, and then you see that they like have like black portions like marked out, that's like a report that's been like redacted. So like that means like there's certain information that they can't release, but they receive like unredacted. So that means every like information like about the person whose house that was, apartment it was, like that those details that should be like blocked out. They knew
from the beginning.
They knew from the beginning,
which is really interesting. So they knew about the person that every news outlet and stuff has just been referring to as
The 41-year-old white
white
guy.
guy. We did ask them about if they knew who he was and if they're going to share. And then they told us they knew who he was, but they do not want to share the renter's name because they are somewhat fearful of like a defamation suit.
Yeah.
And so they have never published his name, and they probably never will be unless somebody else does.
Yeah, unless someone else does. And no, we don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know. They did not tell us. So, no, we have literally no
Yeah.
idea.
We've known since day one, because of that unredacted, because because
Yes.
of the unredacted police report and the fact that when he called, you know what, we truly, honestly believe in the law of reciprocity. So if you do something bad, it'll come back to you, and we have never released the person's name.
Yeah.
It's there.
Because we're kind of fearful of if we do release the name,
defamation.
that it'll come back to us as a defamation.
Yeah, and so we firmly believe that someone, I mean, people do know, but someone will know.
You'll start to kind of understand also too, like mine of like the defamation case that they don't like obviously want, like who wants that? No one. But it'll like piece together why, if I was in their shoes, I don't know if I would say the person's name either, to like based on the connections that this like random white guy has. I don't know if I would want to say their name either, because like who knows, like you have no idea
how they can retaliate.
How they can retaliate. I mean, if they're capable of if someone is capable of having an overdose of this man's house previously, like a month prior, multiple times, you like, who knows what this man is like fully capable of, like, or where his connections
kind of
lie.
power they have.
Yeah, I mean, like for the third time, we're gonna mention they found crystal meth, a straw, and pills in a closet of the old white guy's house. Like, so okay, like. And they were like, and he didn't go to jail for that. He didn't go to jail at all.
Yeah.
And he was protected. Like something, for me, I would think something was up, or I don't know. But anyways.
Totally.
It's just like super, super
weird. Yeah, they believe that due to his economics and race, that's why he was being protected.
Facts.
I know. I start to get really kind of passionate about this because it's amazing to me how when people want to find out, they do, and yet this person still when it's right in front of everybody, still hasn't been named publicly. And that to me is real, because people are asking us to name, and we will never name because it'll come out and it's not going to be from us. But there, it's there.
Yeah.
What does this? If anyone has information about how this white guy is connected to the San Francisco Police Department, please let us know. Even if you email us anonymously, email us no name. We don't give a shit. Like, we want to know, like, what all is he connected to? Because it's just like, it's like goosebump type of vibes. It's just like some like serious shit.
You have to be connected to get that kind of privacy.
Yeah.
It's just,
it's
impossible to be treated like that. There's like people who are getting murdered, and the victims are being like talked about more.
Yeah.
Like their personal information is being shared more.
Yeah.
And whether they smoked weed or something.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like, but then this guy who has drugs right there and a dead person is just like, we'll keep your information safe.
Yeah. And it's like, no, the fuck you shouldn't. Like, why?
Yeah.
What do you mean? Like, keeping this like man's information safe? That is crazy.
It's infuriating.
Gee, that is crazy to me.
It's like the what is that? The like Amber Geiger and Botham Jean case.
Mm-hmm.
Where she's a police officer and waltzed into the wrong apartment, assumed Botham Jean was an intruder, even though he was just sitting on the couch, his own couch,
eating ice cream.
and she shot him and killed him. And the first thing they shared about this case was like, he had drugs in his system, he had weed in his system, and stuff like that. And it's like, but you will blast a dead person, but not this alive person
Yeah.
that did something.
They did the same thing with George Floyd. Like, it was like,
Yeah.
we all are at home and we can see what is happening. How are you
But it's his
telling us-
fault.
It's his fault. How are you talking? How are you showing us, like, his mugshot, talking about his, like, drug history? Like, why are you
It's
doing
totally
that?
unrelated.
It's so unrelated, but it's what they do to black and brown
Yeah.
communities. So we're, like, just so mistreated. And again, that's why we started this, because
Yeah.
it is, we just want to bring light to what is really going on. But
And Jim even said that the police have told them
Why
The other places, not
why
responding.
did the police kind of just sweep this away? And almost from the body worn camera, almost like protecting this guy after there was actual drugs found in his house and they did nothing. And the excuse was when I asked that with the police, the investigator, um, he had stated, "Well, our concern was the death that day, so we weren't really concerned about the drugs that we found in the house."
And if you or I were found with drugs, we would be arrested already without incident.
the drugs are obviously related to the death. If he died from an overdose, maybe not meth, but
yeah, like
it
it's related. It's just, like, so crazy how, like, this whole thing is so, like, careless. Like,
and messy.
yeah, it's so messy. Like it's so messy. Like, they legit sent the family, like, an unredacted report. I hope that person was fired. That's, like, so
Yeah.
messy. That's some messy ass shit. Like,
Yeah.
you're sending me an unredacted, like, these are good people, because, like, I don't know if I found out, like I said I don't know if I would mention, like, the person's name, but I'm like, you don't want to send me an unredacted report about, like, my family, because, like, me and gang going over to this person's house, we showing up in the
Yeah.
lobby, like, Chance the Rapper said, there's gonna be some dreadhead in the lobby, okay? Like, we are showing up, like, do not play. I mean, I just, like, these are, like, Jaxon has, like, his parents are great people, because you don't
Yeah.
want to send me, like, that's just messy
I know,
as shit. That's
yeah.
so messy. I
Yeah.
don't know.
I would be creating a fake Instagram account and and then publishing the name there.
I'm dead. Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh my God.
My name is nobody.
No name.
My name is Thomas Edison, and I happen to learn about this guy's name.
Okay. That's on period. I'm just playing. I'm just playing. No, but, like, seriously though, like, these are some seriously, like, great people. But it's just,
Yeah.
again, like, the whole thing's just,
I
like,
definitely feel for them. Like,
yeah.
that's a lot of pressure to be under, to have the name, but not be able to share it.
That's just,
It's
like,
intense.
that's so
I
intense.
feel for them.
I feel for them too. Like, oh my gosh. That about like the sex related party. That was interesting because we had a conversation. We had a really interesting conversation off camera about this. So because of, like, some of the things in the case, and also when we mentioned the word transport, the transportation.
We have a subpoena or a civil suit out
Service, yeah.
against the person that actually we believe brought Jaxon to the apartment, based upon the 38 texts that were found that were recorded on his phone, to this number that
So
that day he died.
we're on a family plan, and so we saw that actually a mom that had been helping us saw that there was the same number 38 times, and so we texted that number. And that person, when he responded to me, because I asked him how he knew Jaxon, Why did he, text him 38 times that day? He responded in December of 2021, and this was before we released a change.org with specific details about anything about Jackson to the public or even our family in January of 2022. In December 2021, he responded to me with information that nobody knew except us. The name of the person, which we've known since day one, the time when Jackson passed, the fact that we should have had a police report to refer to, how this person knew was, and so, he basically said things too that in the text, that made me wonder what his true identity is, or what he does, because when I asked him how he knew Jackson, he told me, I did not transport your son to this party.
But saying how like, oh, I did not transport your son, like that's like another kind of like, when you're saying that, you're alluding to like, oh, was this a potential like sex party, was this sex trafficking, like that was just like, I don't know, it was that. And then also like the fact that like then you're adding in, okay, is this mixed in with like high ranking officials? Because like right off the gate, like when the police came into his apartment, they said, oh, don't worry, like no one's gonna know your name. Like that instant protection, it makes you wonder like, what
Who are you?
who
And
the
what
fuck
do
are
you know and who are you connected
Yeah,
to?
exactly. Who do you know? Who are you connected to? So I thought that part was really interesting. And then officials said we don't know if he didn't take it willingly, but we also don't know if he did. And they're referencing Jackson. But that mixed with like the sex party, and then you're alluding that Jackson took drugs, and he wasn't known for taking drugs, and it just is like a combination. I just got like goosebumps when Angie
Yeah.
Jackson's mom was talking about that portion, because it just gives me kind of like goosebumps. But
Yeah,
I don't know. I was
definitely.
like, what are your thoughts on that? Like,
Yeah, it's definitely highlighting a double standard for sure,
Yeah.
because any other person that would be connected to a death or drugs, like they would not be privy to privacy like that.
no, yeah.
Like, no.
Absolutely not. There's no way. Like, there's no way. Like, there's no way a police officer's coming in here
Yeah.
or coming into my house and saying, Jenny Wilson, we are going to protect you. I'm looking at that man sideways like, he got me fucked
Yeah.
up. Like, I know you're going to do some shady shit. Like, it just like, and you can't grant access like that so easily. How can you grant access to, like, I just don't get that. I don't get it. Because even if like someone like overdose at like Walmart, they're going to say Walmart overdose. So why is it like, why does this man like not get, like, I don't know. That part was just like,
They're just like,
yeah.
you get all the privacy.
Yeah. Which is like
So,
weird. But I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. But do you want to talk about the chief of police
yeah.
situation?
So we also asked the parents if their relationship with the police department had improved and if they had kind of come through. And so the family said that they eventually did. And they said that the chief of police actually reached out to the newspaper and said that they're willing and they wanted to talk with the family. But then they never reached out
They
to them.
never reached out.
And so the family had to take the reins and reach out to the police to get this started.
Which is like, how
Is this not your job?
This whole thing is so fucking
is your
messy.
job.
This whole thing is so messy to me, because it's like, what are you doing? Like, I'm so confused with what these people are like doing.
Yeah.
Like the redacted report, the like this guy's automatically being protected and we don't know why. Like the guy that was texting Jackson that used the word transport. Like none.
They're not
this
even
is-
trying to hide
No.
that they're biased.
No, they like don't give a shit, which is so apparent, which
Yeah.
is so crazy to us.
So the family then met up with the police and they gave them all the information that they had collected and the contacts, the information about the texter. And the police eventually did agree to open the investigation.
And that, the change.org explicitly says that, yes, we want an investigation. We had been trying and trying with the medical examiner to reopen the case for the previous year when it hadn't been public, and they were adamant that they would not. But with the chief of police, we gave them everything, and we told them, you know, please reinvestigate. So they agreed to take a look at our questions, and the change.org does say, we want the investigation, but we want our questions answered. So over that 6 months, they would let us know every so often that, that they were continuing to try to reach out to people.
Mm-hmm.
And when we met with them, it was interesting because
Well,
yeah.
I also wanted to mention too that when they said that they were going to reinvestigate and open the case, they had told us not to say anything to social media
Yes, that's
and
right.
keep quiet. So we abided by what they said and waited for them to finish their investigation, which Angie, you could take from this point now, which took 6 months for them to actually. So we were quiet for 6 months. We didn't say anything. We didn't uh, continue to say things that we found from social to social media
Yeah.
or to the news.
And we haven't even shared on our social media that the police had decided to investigate. And so after that 6 months, they called us in, and it was surprising. We spent a few hours with them, and they
And
couldn't tell us.
they
There
had
was
a binder about
3 inches. Yeah,
no
about
thick,
thicker.
6 inches
Yeah,
thick.
it was pretty
A
big.
binder 6 inches thick of the investigation that was done by the officer, homicide officer. But they said that this meeting isn't to discuss any of the
The
details
findings.
in this binder. You're going to have to subpoena the judge,
Yeah,
or
we'd have to get a court order from the judge to even get
to just to look at it.
to look at it, and
But that's after the
yeah,
legal
to
team,
look at
their legal team also goes through it
and
and
redacts.
redacts all information that
So
we cannot be privy.
Okay, we have all this information. We have this like fat binder full of information, but you can't have it. We also can't discuss the contents of our investigation, that is this nice thick binder.
Yeah.
But you're going to have to get a lawyer to subpoena this thing so you can read a redacted version
Yeah.
of it.
Even though they already have the redacted report, and if I'm not mistaken, I think Angie also mentioned that the guy, one of like the officers or someone was like, "How did you get this?" And she's
Yeah.
like, "It was sent to me."
Yeah.
What do you mean? Like, how did I get this? Like, you literally sent this.
You
shit
sent
to me.
this to me. You gave this to me.
You sent it to me, but like,
It's just so odd that they're like, yeah, we want to investigate this, and they spent like all this time investigating, but then they're like, but I can't tell you what I found.
yeah, and it's like,
What's the whole purpose then?
what the
Then
fuck is the
you shouldn't
point?
have done it in the first place if you're just gonna hide it anyways.
yeah, it's kind of like, it's like, oh, we're teasing you. We have this information. We're teasing you, and it's just like
But you have to jump through all these hoops
all
to
these
get
hoops,
it.
and it's just like, it's so crazy to me. I don't
Yeah.
know that shit. Like, and then interesting that the police was saying they can't open an investigation because the medical examiner said it's an accidental overdose, but then was willing to open an investigation after the media like took this like story, and it was like all over the place. So they're like, oh, well, actually we can, but it's like, no, you're saying that now because it gained media attention.
Yeah.
That's the reason why you're doing
Not because
this.
you actually care.
Yeah, not because you actually care.
but it's very interesting to note that in San Francisco, they're very interwoven, all of those agencies. So for 2 years, we got the message that because the medical examiner had called Jackson's death accidental, the police could not open up an investigation. Back and forth, until we went public, and all of a sudden the police could investigate.
And then like another weird thing was okay, so the mayor London Breed of San Francisco, this was like super weird, but like why has Mayor London Breed not said anything about this case? Because we had senators, governors of like the state of California that were like, we want to open this case, da da da. But the mayor London Breed like just is doing legitimately nothing.
We reached out to the mayor's office, London Breed. Not one word to this day from that person. Not one word. Not even from her office. And so it makes me wonder, what is this about? Because if Senator Scott Wiener can approach us unsolicited and say, we support you, and by the way, I actually already wrote a letter of support for you, when Senator Don Prada can also do the same thing, it makes me wonder, why is London Breed and her office not responding?
The other weird thing is how when they initially found out about Jackson's death, the police told them that they're going to investigate this, and they told them to keep quiet and not go to social media and stuff like that about the death. And so the family did that. They were like, yeah, we trust you, like you do your job and we'll keep quiet. And then the police didn't do a damn thing.
Nothing.
And suddenly when they went to the media, they can do a damn thing.
Right.
So they're also like telling you the wrong information because they don't want you to move forward with an investigation. They're just like not helpful at all. They're purposely telling them to keep quiet so that they don't have a fire up their ass to actually do their job.
Which is some shady
and
shit.
To enable them to like just move this under the rug.
It's like don't worry. We're gonna do
we're
something.
Working on it.
We're working.
It's on my backlog.
Yeah, it's on my backlog. Don't worry. We're figuring out a roadmap. It's like no, the fuck you're not. You're just bullshitting, and that's like it's like this whole thing is just like so messy. Which is I don't know. It's just like it's so messy.
Yeah.
But yeah, the parents were like, okay, well, we won't say anything for 6 months. And then after 6 months, the police told them, they're like, hey, we like haven't heard anything. And then of course, then when they went to social, like you said, that's when they were like, oh shit, okay, like
we got a binder full of info.
Like what the fuck?
But it's in a locker.
Yeah, it's in a locker on the second shelf behind like the 500 shelves. Like, you know what I mean? It was just like...
And we lost the key to the entire building.
Yeah. Oh, man. You know what? That building actually burned down yesterday of last year. Like, what? Yeah, it's just like...
They're not even trying.
At that point, like...
who even knows if that's a real binder of information? That's just like their collection of like takeout menus.
It just doesn't make any sense.
Do we want to talk about how the family is self-representing?
Oh, yeah.
And Angie will go into the trouble we've been having trying to find anybody that will take our case.
Yes. So we started to talk to, 3 or 4 law firms a day for months and months, and sharing our story. Everybody wanted the police report. Everybody wanted the ME report. Everybody wanted to know this person's name. So when we give all this information based on, confidentiality with the lawyers, they'll come back and say, oh, I'm sorry, our workload's too high. Oh, I'm sorry, we just can't do it right now. And we're like, what is happening? Who is protecting this person? And what has he done for others that they are willing to protect him? And so we finally got a couple of attorneys who were actually truthful. And they said to us, he doesn't have money. And for us, and when we finally distilled down to he doesn't have money, one truthful attorney told us, well, he doesn't have any real estate that we can see in a background check, so we don't think we're going to get money out of it. And so this is why law firm after law firm has turned us down, is because they believe they won't get money from him.
That was shocking.
That was heartbreaking. Because, of course, when we're doing research and we're like literally using Google and trying to find as much information that's like easily accessible to us, for my mind, I was already under the assumption that they had, like, to do all of this, they had representation. Mm-hmm. But to hear Angie and Jim talk about like the loops and the battles and the hardships they've had to like go to get representation and how they can't, and they're self-representing, that like broke my heart. Cause I'm like,
I know
how, but like, and then in regards to about like, oh, this guy doesn't have enough real estate or money. Like, it's like,
we can't get anything out of it if we represent you.
Yeah. Like it didn't make any sense because someone died. Like someone died, and the first go-to was about like money, and this guy doesn't have enough like real estate. And it's like, first of all, how do you...
Is this not about justice?
Yeah.
So exactly. So just so you know, one thing we learned about actually a lot of things we learned about our legal system, it does not protect the victims. It also allows people who are alleged perpetrators or defendants to actually buy their legal team. So they can outright buy a legal team, whereas a legal team representing a plaintiff will either do it pro bono, which even the pro bono ones were turning us down, those that will do it for free, which we never asked. People were pushing us to talk to people about pro bono, but we didn't want that. We were willing to pay per hour an attorney to represent us. And all attorneys said to us, if you're a plaintiff, it's based on how much we think we're going to win. That's when we'll take your case, but you can't pay us per hour. But the alleged defendants' attorneys can pay, you get their legal teams together and pay per hour. And
Well,
so
also, too, a lot of the attorneys, when they look at the case, because there wasn't evidence, enough evidence, or the police did a kind of a half-assed job at the investigation, there wasn't enough evidence to really convict or go against these people that we have in our lawsuit.
And like, how do you like? So it like, and then now I was talking about it, it makes me wonder: do these people like know this man?
That too.
Yeah, you know,
or when they got the name,
yeah,
they found out like what that person's involved with or who that person's involved with, and they just don't want to.
They don't
rock
want like
that
any
boat.
smoke. Yeah, they want no smoke. Like they like, we don't want to mess with this, or we don't want to rock that boat. Whatever.
So the family said that they're really close to the statute of limitations, which I think is like 2 years or something like that. So they are self-representing, and they filed civil suits against the building, the renter, and the person that texted Jaxon.
So we gave the names of the person that called or texted Jaxon 38 times. They tried to contact him, and they couldn't contact him, is what they told us.
Which doesn't surprise us, because he's evaded us as well ever since I've texted him.
Yeah, he's evaded the servers,
And
so we haven't been able to serve him for the civil case.
This shit was so spooky. Like, that's some spooky shit. Like, you first of all use the word like you first say I did not transport your son, and now like we can't find you to serve you. Like, who the fuck are you? Like, where are you? Are you a ghost? Like, I don't know.
Apparently they're ghosts.
That was
crazy.
That was like, that gave me goosebumps, because it was just like, it's so horrific. It's like, this is something that you like watch a movie on.
Yeah.
But like, to know that it's like real life, and like these people are still not being held like accountable, or this person, we can't even like find them.
They're not even willing to help in any way.
No, it's just like, this guy is connected. I don't know that, like, I don't know. This guy is connected in ways that we can't even imagine. Like, you know, like it just kind of like, I don't know. It's just really like, it's really like unsettling, to say the least. Like, it's super unsettling.
That was a lot.
That was a lot to process. Should we go over like, I mean, we could do this at the end, but we could like from all that information, that's a lot of like, I don't want to say like jargon, but information that we just like kind of threw out there. But I would say a couple of takeaways. This guy's connected to the San Francisco government shit, whatever, like police department. He has some type of weird connection. The guy who was texting Jaxon 38 times that night, can't find him. Like, what?
He's just a ghost.
He's a ghost.
He's literally off the grid.
Off the grid. We don't know like where this person is. The medical examiner was messy as fuck, and like, just like the lack of compassion when calling Angie at work, just like the lack of like wanting to figure out what happened to this 20-year-old kid. Like, that was weird. The unredacted report that had all the information in it, the police department.
And then the secret binder.
Oh yeah, the secret binder that doesn't exist in a building that burned yesterday of last year. Like, I keep saying that. I keep saying that. I don't know why I want to say that. And then I don't know if you peeped when I said walk the goldfish. I don't know why I'm saying that shit. Those are the 5 things that should take away.
Really stood out to us.
Yeah, that like really stood out to us. Like, that are just, And then I say that maybe the sixth thing is like how they can't get representation. But I guess that ties into this guy being involved in like San Francisco somehow. Like he's involved with just the whole city of San Francisco. We don't know how. We don't know why.
So I think it would be great transition from all of that information to talk about something more positive, which is Jaxon and his life. And his parents shared a lot of nice stories about him with us. And here are like a few clips of that.
The one thing that I wanted to share was that I, for a while, got into punk music. Don't ask me why. In my old age, I loved punk. And so I would take Jackson to the concerts with me because the tickets were like $8, so he would go. And I remember one time he went, we were there and we didn't realize the mosh pit was starting. He had to pull me so quick. We were like getting and go. It was just, I loved it. And so like one of his friends told me that one of the songs from one of my favorite bands came on and he was singing along and she's like, how do you know this? And he's like, oh, my mom and I went to the concert. So, and I'm telling you, Jackson's life was very short. So he was 20. So I think I took him when he was about 15. So it's only been 5 years, but he loved, he loved just getting in there and experiencing life is basically, I guess, that illustrates. It's just his real well-roundedness on everything in life and just wanting to be able to experience it.
I remember when we asked Angie and Jim about like if they could tell us about Jaxon, and just like to see how they both like lit up when mentioning about like how he was as a person was so like heartfelt and warm, because that's how you would want your parent to talk about you in a positive light. And I really just love the fact that when Angie mentioned about how she took Jaxon to his first like punk rock, like that was so dope, because my mom wasn't taking me to that. Like that was so cool.
Was not taking me to that either.
No, like I thought that was like so cool. That was like, oh, okay, like that was a vibe.
They have a connection and they're so comfortable with each other.
Yeah,
you could really tell from the way that they spoke about
exactly.
About him. Also, I really was impressed by the story about them going to Disneyland.
Oh, yes.
That was really sweet as well, where he...
it was one of our last trips together as a family of 10, my brother and his family, and then our family of 4, and then my parents. This time around, they, every time we stay, they always put us at the end of the hall in the furthest building. And, that's great because that's where their suites are. But the last night we were there, the guards stopped my family. And we had gone in a different way, Jim and I, to our rooms. And then, my kids call and they're like, the guards stopped us. They were questioning us. They're down here. They won't let us come up. And I'm like,
Yeah, they were questioning, are you staying at this hotel?
Yeah. And for as much as I've dropped on Disney, for thousands of years, since I was 1 year old, because I was, my parents brought me even at 1. And I was furious. I kind of flew down on my, down the elevator, and I just laid it into the security guard, who happened to be a minority himself, right? Like who happened to be a person of color himself. I'm like, I do not understand this. Well, I was questioning because nobody seemed to have a key. And it's like, you don't need a key to go to the elevator. You need a key to go to the other floors that are concierge. But, so we kind of went back and forth. And Jaxon saw how mad I was. And he pulled the person aside. He goes, look, this is probably one of our last family vacations together. This is our last night, and we have enjoyed so much. And to be questioned this way was just really disrespectful, especially because we'd been in and out of here for 5 days, And so, he's just going on. And I was like, I wish I could be as mature and as, effective as Jaxon, because I just kind of lit. And that's who he was, right? In the face of adversity, or when justice was needed, or just a calm, reasoning voice, that was Jaxon.
You could really tell that he was like a calm and reasonable person, which was also evident in the letter story
when he was like an advocate for his manager.
Yeah,
they were like being racist.
So it's just like another piece of evidence showing like what a good person.
Yeah, like what a good person, what a great spirit. Like when his parents were talking about him, I could feel like I don't know, I could like feel that like, oh, he was like a dope person. He had great energy. Like he just like, but especially that you mentioned like the Disney, when they went to Disneyland, Disney World.
I don't remember. They just said Disney.
Oh, when they went to Disney. But when they talked about like that portion about like how like he pulled the security guy to the side and was like, look, and was like talking, I thought that was so, it was so just enlightening, and it was just so like caring, and it was just so like, wow, at 20 you're doing all these things. Do you know what I was doing at 20?
Yeah. Had that been me, that would have been like hand slapping. I'd be like, you are ruining my vacation. I would not have been calm and cool, collected. Been like,
No.
What are you doing?
Yeah, I would have been like, you don't want this smoke. Please get out my face. Like, you don't want to do this right now. Like, please get out my face. You don't want this energy. Or honestly, like, either I'd have like that energy at 20 because I was so like, whatever. I was just like, I mean, you don't know who you are yet at 20. But it sounded like he had an idea of like who he was as a person, and just had like, if I remember correctly, she mentioned that he had like an old soul.
Yeah.
So like you can definitely tell by like just the way that his parents are talking about him, and but it was I appreciated too how she talked about how both parents worked, Angie and Jim worked really hard to put their children into private schools, and just like showing how like they wanted their children to have like the best education possible.
Yeah.
And how like they went to school with like very wealthy children who were going to like Dubai for the summer or spring break or going skiing and all these things. And it was really cool just to see like that's what parents like will do for their kids, right? They want to make sure that you have like the best education possible. But it was a fact that like not only that, but then on weekends, as all of their like rich classmates are traveling, the brother and Jaxon would go to work with the parents, which I was like, wow, that is like, that just like hit differently.
Very grounding.
Very, very grounding. And
But also they mentioned kind of like a sad part about them going to that school as well, and how like the economic difference was kind of like a bad experience for the two boys as well, and also the just like their identities and like being gay and knowing that very early on. So that was kind of heartbreaking, that because of them being bullied so much in that environment, both of them actually ended up taking the California equivalent of like a GAD.
Yeah, and like
but they both, they got it done, and they started working, and they like he did it.
Yeah, he did it. They got it.
He got
cracking,
out.
And he wanted to go to college, I believe. And so he like it was like
he had great plans.
Had great jobs. Like it's just but it's messed up that like kids and like the bullying because of the economic difference. Like I don't really feel like people talk about that enough, especially like within school. But I just thought that like they were just like really, really, really good parents. And like obviously they love Jaxon too. But yeah, and then like because when Jaxon passed during the stay-at-home order, unfortunately, they only had a funeral, but they were only allowed 10 people to go, and which was like really, 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 really interesting. But
it was really heartbreaking. I mean, in the early days of COVID, nobody had an idea how to do anything, so they almost like weren't able to have a funeral at all. But they said that because he worked several jobs and was just such a people person, he had so many friends that would have loved to be there.
Yeah.
And it's just a shame that they weren't able to kind of say farewell to him.
I know, which is like so sad and like so, because it's just like why end like this is like a sad note, to kind of like end on. But it's just like it's just so unfortunate how this case was handled, and again, like we said, that's why we wanted to kind of do this podcast. But It just to show people like to show the people who are like blue lives matter. We're not saying like that like a police officer's life doesn't matter, but what we're saying is like look at how the police department treats like the Black community, Asian community, LGBTQ plus community, like and other like community as well, minority community
And
as well.
show us that those people matter to you.
Because every case I want to say that we've covered in some way, shape, or form, something was off, and like it just something was off, or it wasn't maybe like handled correctly. And there was I believe there's like one case that it was like handled correctly and they found the guy, but it was still like, but no one knows about it. It was like our main point. But just to see how like this was such a loving, caring person, and these grown ass adults
Are not willing to help.
are not willing to help and did little to protect this kid. He was a 20-year-old kid. That's the part for me that's like so fucked up. And he was an advocate in the Asian community and the LGBTQ plus community. So like how, like for me, it, like the messed up part is like, how is he an advocate and like doing all these things to help people, but no one's helping him? That's the part that I like, it's not registering in my like mind.
Yeah, it's just really heartbreaking.
Yeah.
But on that note, because as you mentioned, they weren't able to have a big funeral for him, they did mention that they are going to have a celebration of life memorial for Jaxon on his death anniversary. And that will be in, I believe, March.
Yeah, for his anniversary.
This year. So we'll keep everyone updated on that. And also we hope that this episode can maybe push this case forward in some way or raise awareness for it again, because we really hope that this case can come to a close and bring some justice to Jaxon, peace of mind to the parents,
his family,
to the gay community, the Asian community. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess.
So, yeah, this is the end of our first episode for the second season.
Our first ever interview.
And our first ever interview. Definitely let us know how you felt about this episode and the format. We're dying to know.
Yes.
But this is it.
This is it.
Thank you for tuning in. We're in the shade.